What if the very flaw you were mocked for became the reason a king chose you above all others? What if the face the world despised was the one face a cursed alpha couldn't ignore? Tonight, in the Grand Court of Wolves, a girl they called too ugly to be wanted will shatter every expectation, and you won't believe how it begins. Stay with me, because what happens in this hall tonight will set fire to everything that follows. The great banquet hall of the Silverfang Kingdom gleamed with gold and crystal, alive with laughter, music, and the scent of roasted meats. Beautiful maidens paraded in silken gowns, each hoping to be noticed by the most feared and desired ruler of the realm, the Alpha King, Kaelen. But tucked in the shadow of the hall's pillars stood Liora. Her gown was plain, her stepmother's cruel hand having dressed her to look insignificant. Murmurs swirled around her like smoke. Why is she even here? The poor thing, look at her face. Her stepsister smirked from the front row, whispering loudly, as if the king would ever look at her. And then he entered, Kaelen. The hall fell into silence as he strode forward, tall, broad-shouldered, with eyes like storm clouds. Every maiden straightened, their hearts pounding with hope. He walked slowly, deliberately, his gaze sweeping over the rows of glittering beauties. But he didn't stop for any of them. His steps carried him past the jeweled gowns, past the painted smiles, until the air grew tense with disbelief. Gasps echoed as Kaelen's eyes fixed not on the dazzling daughters of nobles, but on Liora, the girl shoved into shadows. She froze, her breath caught in her throat. His gaze was sharp, unblinking, almost searching. The weight of it pinned her in place as he crossed the hall with the silence of a predator. Her stepmother's face drained of color. No. Impossible. Kaelen stopped before Liora. For one endless heartbeat, the world held its breath. He reached down, his fingers brushing her chin, lifting her face to the light. His lips curved not in a smile, but in something far more dangerous. Leaning close so that only she could hear, his voice rumbled low. You look exactly like her. Liora's pulse thundered. Her? Who? But before she could ask, Kaelen straightened and turned to the court. I have chosen, he declared, his voice like iron carrying through the hall. This will be my queen. The banquet erupted into chaos, screams of protest, gasps of disbelief, nobles surging to their feet. Her stepmother staggered forward, shrieking, No, not her! Liora's heart raced as all eyes pierced into her. She wanted to vanish, but Kaelen's hand remained firm on hers, unyielding, claiming her before the world. The episode closes on Liora's wide, trembling eyes as Kaelen leans closer once more, whispering words that make her blood run cold, words that the audience will not hear. The hall quaked with uproar. Nobles shouted, maidens wailed, goblets shattered against the floor. Never in the kingdom's history had the Alpha King chosen a bride so far beneath expectation, much less one the court openly mocked. Liora's ears rang with the noise, her heart hammering like a trapped bird. Kaelen's hand still clutched hers, a grip so firm it burned into her skin. His words echoed inside her head. You look exactly like her. Her? Who? Before she could form the question, her stepmother surged forward, face twisted with fury. This is madness, she spat, pointing a jeweled finger at Liora. She is unworthy. She is scarred, plain, a disgrace to the crown. My daughter is no queen. Gasps rippled across the hall. Liora shrank, her cheeks burning, but Kaelen's eyes flashed silver, a dangerous warning. Silence, he growled, the word laced with power that rattled the chandeliers overhead. Every wolf in the hall instinctively lowered their gaze, cowed by the dominance in his voice, but her stepmother did not bow. This girl is nothing, she hissed. You insult the throne by even touching her. Kaelen moved before she could finish. In a blur of speed, his hand closed around her throat, lifting her from the ground as though she weighed nothing. Gasps turned to terrified silence. His voice rumbled, low and lethal. Insult her again, and I will rip the tongue from your mouth. He dropped her, and she crumpled, choking on her pride. Liora's knees trembled. She didn't know whether to feel protected or afraid. The power in him was wild, too wild. and yet his grip on her hand never loosened, as if he feared she would vanish if he let go. With a single motion, Kaelen turned to the crowd. "This is no debate. I have chosen. She will be my queen. Prepare the rites." Shouts rose again, protests, whispers of curses, even a few laughs of disbelief, but none dared openly challenge him. Liora, however, could not shake the weight of his whisper. As the court began to disperse under Kaelin's command, she finally dared to lift her voice, trembling. "Who is her?" Kaelin's gaze snapped to her, sharp and unreadable. His jaw clenched as though the answer was too dangerous to speak. He leaned close, lips grazing her ear, his voice a storm barely contained. "She was the only woman I ever loved, and she died because of me." The words pierced her like a blade. The warmth of the hall drained away, leaving only a chilling silence in her chest. But before she could demand more, a horn blasted from outside the palace walls, long, sharp, urgent. The sound of war. Guards burst through the doors, armor clattering, eyes wide with fear. "My king!" one shouted. "The border has been breached. The Shadowfang clan is here." Kaelin's expression darkened, fury and something else flickering in his storm-gray eyes. He released her hand at last, stepping forward like a predator ready for blood. But just before he left her side, he cast Liora one last look, a look filled with secrets and burdens. His final words to her that night cut deeper than any blade. "Stay alive, Liora. If they see your face, they'll kill you." The episode ends on her trembling gasp as the hall doors crash open again, revealing a shadowed figure cloaked in black. Stepping into the chaos, its glowing eyes locked not on Kaelen, but directly on Liora. The banquet hall was still in chaos when the cloaked intruder's glowing eyes locked on Liora. Kaelen moved instantly, stepping between them, his growl shaking the walls. Guards surged forward, steel clashing. But when they struck, the figure dissolved into black smoke, vanishing into the night. Whispers spread in the aftermath. The Shadowfang clan. They've come for her. Within the hour, Liora was taken deeper into the palace under heavy guard. Gold pillars and silver torches should have awed her, but the cold stares of Kaelin's council weighed heavier than stone. They gathered in the high chamber, lords, generals, and elders, their gazes sharp as blades. "This is reckless," one elder spat. "You endanger us all by bringing her here." "She doesn't belong on the throne," another sneered. "She brings omens," hissed a third. Their words cut Liora like knives. She lowered her eyes, feeling small, unwanted, and out of place. But Kaelin's voice silenced them. "Enough, she stays." His tone left no room for argument. Yet as the council bowed, their eyes betrayed rebellion. That night, after being shown to her chambers, Liora couldn't sleep. The palace was too vast, too silent, its shadows whispering with secrets. Her mother's warning echoed in her memory. "Do not trust the king." Then she heard it. "Liora." A voice. Soft. Familiar. She sat upright, her breath catching. "Who's there?" Her voice trembled as she stepped into the hallway. The corridors stretched long and empty, lit by flickering torches. Her bare feet echoed against the marble as she followed the sound. "Liora." It grew clearer, more insistent. She rounded a corner and froze. There, at the far end of the corridor, stood a figure. Pale, ethereal, shimmering like mist. Her heart stopped. It was her mother. Eyes filled with sorrow, the figure lifted a hand as though reaching for her. Liora stumbled forward, tears burning her eyes. "Mother, how are you here?" The ghost's lips moved, but the words came out broken, warped, like echoes in water. "Beware, the one you call king. He—" Before she could finish, the torches flared. A gust of icy wind tore through the corridor, and the figure vanished into nothing. Liora collapsed against the wall, trembling. Her mother's voice lingered in her ears, a warning unfinished, a secret unspoken. She barely had time to breathe when a hand suddenly clamped over her mouth, dragging her into the shadows. Her muffled cry died in her throat as she was pulled against a chest that radiated raw heat. "Quiet," a rough voice hissed. Her eyes widened in horror. It wasn't Kaelen. The stranger's grip tightened as glowing amber eyes pierced hers in the dark. "If you want the truth," he whispered, "come with me, before it's too late." The rough hand over Liora's mouth pressed tighter, her body struggling against the stranger's strength. His glowing amber eyes burned in the dark, so different from Kaelen's storm gray. "I said quiet," he whispered, breath hot against her ear. "If you scream, they'll find us both." Her heart pounded. "They?" Before she could speak, the sound of heavy boots thundered down the corridor. Guards marched past, searching, their armor gleaming. The stranger waited, silent as stone, until they faded into the distance. Then he released her. Liora staggered back, clutching her chest. "Who are you?" she demanded, voice trembling. He smirked, but it was bitter, filled with something darker than amusement. "No one you're meant to meet, not yet. But listen well, girl, the Alpha King chose you because you are her mirror, and mirrors crack." Her breath caught. You know about my mother?" His expression hardened. "Your mother wasn't the first. Ask Kaelen about his Luna. Ask him how she died." Before she could ask more, a sudden growl echoed down the corridor. The stranger stiffened, then melted into shadow, vanishing as swiftly as he had come. "Wait." Liora reached out, but it was too late. He was gone. A moment later, Kaelen appeared, his eyes flashing silver, his presence filling the hall. His gaze swept over her, sharp, almost feral. "Why are you out of your chambers?" She hesitated, then blurted, "Who was she?" "The woman I resemble." Kaelen's jaw tightened, but he didn't look away. For the first time, his voice carried something raw, something broken. "She was my Luna, my mate. She died in this palace, and her death still stains my hands." Liora's throat tightened. "And that's why you chose me? Because I look like her?" His silence was answer enough. Before she could demand more, a sound split the night, a clash of steel, a cry of pain. Kaelen's head snapped toward the noise. The torches flickered violently as shadows leapt across the walls. Suddenly, figures burst into the chamber. Palace guards, yet their blades were drawn against Kaelen. "Traitors," Kaelen growled, his voice rumbling like thunder. He shoved Liora behind him, claws sliding from his hands as his body rippled with restrained fury. The first guard lunged. Kaelen caught the blade with his bare hand, blood dripping, and snarled, slamming the man into the wall. But more came, surrounding him, striking with ruthless precision as if they knew his every weakness. Liora screamed as Kaelen staggered under the assault. The sight chilled her. The Alpha King, feared by all, forced to his knees by his own men. And then she saw one of the attackers pulling off his helmet. Not a nameless soldier, but Lord Veyron, the counselor who had spoken loudest against her. His blade pressed to Kaelen's throat, and his voice dripped venom. "The king bleeds tonight, and his false queen will not live to see the dawn." Lord Veyron's blade pressed tighter against Kaelen's throat, blood gleaming crimson beneath the torchlight. Liora's breath caught, her body frozen between fear and disbelief. "Do it," one of the traitors hissed. "End him. The Shadow Fangs will reward us." But Kaelen's eyes snapped open, glowing with savage silver. With a roar that shook the walls, he surged upward, his claws slashing. The blade scraped across his skin but failed to cut deep. In a blur, he tore two guards aside like paper, their bodies crashing into pillars. Veyron cursed and leapt back, his face twisting with fury. "He's weaker than he should be. Strike now." The traitors closed in, blades flashing. Kaelen fought with raw ferocity, but Liora could see it. His movement slowed, his strength faltering. Poison. His earlier wound. The blade he caught with his bare hand had been laced with it. "Kaelen," she cried, helpless. A shadow darted toward her. One of the masked attackers broke from the fight, lunging straight for her with a dagger raised high. She stumbled back, heart hammering. Before the steel could strike, Kaelen intercepted, his arm locking around the assassin's throat. With a brutal twist, the body fell limp. The hall rang with silence. For a heartbeat, only the crackle of torches filled the air. Then Kaelen staggered, gripping his side, the poison burning through him. "Run!" he rasped to her. "Get Out! But Varen was already fleeing, vanishing into the labyrinth of corridors. Kaelen tried to follow, but collapsed to one knee, his claws scraping the stone. Liora, shaking, stumbled toward the fallen assassin instead. Something glimmered near his hand, an amulet torn loose in the struggle. She bent down, picking it up. Her breath hitched. She knew this amulet. She had seen it countless times, dangling from the wrist of her stepmother, Lady Selene. Its carved wolf insignia, its broken clasp, there was no mistake. Her fingers went cold. Why would her stepmother's amulet be on the assassin's body? Her stomach churned as the truth began to coil inside her like venom. Her stepmother wasn't just cruel, she was tied to the betrayal. Kaelen's ragged voice cut through her shock. Liora. He reached for her, blood dripping from his palm. This was not their plan alone. Someone close. Someone you know. Before he could finish, another sound ripped through the hall, the sharp cry of a hunting horn, closer this time. The torches flickered violently, and the doors at the end of the corridor blew open with a crash. Dozens more masked figures poured in, their blades drawn, their eyes glowing unnaturally red. Liora clutched the amulet in her hand as Kaelen's voice thundered beside her, hoarse but unyielding. Stay behind me. But as the masked army advanced, one figure at their head pulled off his hood, revealing not a stranger, but Liora's stepbrother. Liora's breath caught in her throat. Her stepbrother Darius stood at the head of the masked attackers, his lips curling into a cruel smile. You? She whispered, her grip tightening on the amulet. Why are you? Because you were never meant to rise, he spat, his voice sharp with hatred. Mother promised the Shadowfangs your life. You should have stayed in the dirt where you belonged. Kaelen staggered, his poisoned body trembling with fury. But still he spread his arms before Liora. His growl shook the pillars. Touch her and you will not live to regret it. Darius only laughed, signaling the masked soldiers forward. But before the blades could fall, the torches along the hall flared violently. A cold wind roared through the chamber, carrying with it a whisper that only Liora seemed to hear. Daughter of the flame, beneath the throne, find me. Her vision blurred, the world tilted. Suddenly she wasn't in the hall anymore, she was standing in a vast underground chamber lit by blue fire. Murals of wolves, stars, and a crowned woman covered the walls. Her stepbrother's voice yanked her back. Kill them! Chaos erupted. Steel clashed, Kaelen's roar echoing as he cut down soldiers with his bare claws. Liora clutched the amulet, her heart thundering. The whisper came again, urgent now. Beneath the throne. Something pulled at her feet, a magnetic force dragging her away from the battle. She stumbled down a side corridor, ignoring Kaelen's shout behind her. Her breath grew ragged as she pushed through twisting halls until at last she came to a sealed stone door, hidden behind a tapestry. Her trembling hands pressed the amulet into a hollow in the door. The stone shuddered, groaned, and split open, revealing a staircase spiraling into darkness. Drawn by instinct, she descended. The air was heavy, ancient, alive. At the bottom lay a chamber vast as a cathedral. The walls shimmered faintly with forgotten runes, and at its center stood a mural, towering and luminous. Her eyes widened. It was a prophecy. Wolves painted beneath a blood-red moon, an alpha kneeling, and above them all, a woman crowned in silver fire. Her face was scarred yet radiant. Beneath the mural, carved words glowed as her presence lit the stone. A scarred queen will break the curse of the wolves. Her breath caught. Scarred queen, me? The chamber shook. The mural's eyes flared with light, as if the prophecy itself had awakened at her touch. Blue flames erupted along the walls, swirling into the shape of a great spectral wolf, its voice a thunder that filled her mind. The time has come. The blood of betrayal walks your halls. Choose, child of flame, or the curse will devour them all. Before she could answer, a scream echoed down the staircase, her stepbrother's voice. Found her! The chamber doors slammed open, masked soldiers storming inside, blades drawn. Darius led them, his eyes blazing with triumph. Liora stumbled back as the spectral wolf lowered its head toward her, whispering only for her ears. "Claim the fire, or die tonight." The hidden chamber blazed with blue fire as Darius stormed inside, soldiers at his back. The spectral wolf hovered above Liora, its luminous eyes locked onto hers. "Kill her!" Darius roared, pointing his blade. But as the men surged forward, the wolf let out a thunderous growl that rattled the stone. A burst of flame erupted from the mural, forcing the soldiers to stumble back. Liora, heart hammering, lifted the amulet instinctively. The fire bent toward her, wrapping her in a protective circle. Her stepbrother's sneer faltered. What are you?" She didn't answer. She didn't know. The chamber shook violently, dust raining from the ceiling. Kaelen's voice roared from the corridor, savage and furious. He burst through the door, his claws dripping with blood. Seeing Darius, his eyes burned silver. "You!" His voice was death itself. Darius retreated, signaling his soldiers. "This isn't finished." With a final glare at Liora, he fled, the others scattering with him. The spectral wolf dissolved into mist, its whisper lingering in Leora's mind. The scarred queen must choose. Time runs thin. Kaelen rushed to her, seizing her shoulders. His touch was almost desperate. "Are you hurt? Did they touch you?" "I'm fine," she whispered, shaken. But the look in his eyes unsettled her. It wasn't just concern, it was possession. His claws hadn't retracted. His chest heaved with ragged breaths as if losing her would unmake him. "Stay close to me," he growled. "From now on, you do not leave my sight." Elsewhere, far from the palace, in the shadowed halls of Leora's family estate, Lady Selene lit black candles around a ritual circle. Across from her stood a rival Alpha Lord Merrick of the Shadowfangs, tall and sharp-eyed, his aura seething with power. "You promised me her death," Merrick said coldly. Selene's lips curved in a venomous smile. "And I will deliver. But first Kaelen must fall. He has made her queen, and that crown makes her untouchable." Merrick leaned closer. "Then how do you intend to dethrone an alpha?" Selene's eyes gleamed. "By breaking him from within. His bond with her will twist into obsession. Obsession will drive him mad, and madness will destroy him." They clasped hands, sealing the pact in blood. Back in the palace, Liora sat alone in her chamber, staring at the mural's memory burned into her mind. A scarred queen, a curse, her. The door creaked open. Kaelen entered without knocking. His gaze softened only when it fell on her, but his posture was tense, restless. "You shouldn't be alone," he murmured, stepping closer. His hand brushed her cheek, lingering too long, too fiercely. "You belong here. With me. Always." Her breath caught not in comfort but unease. His protectiveness was no longer protection, it was hunger, tightening around her like chains. And as she searched his stormy eyes, she realized with dread, he wasn't just trying to keep her safe. He was trying to keep her his. The scene closes with Kaelen whispering against her ear, his tone low and possessive. "Even death won't take you from me. Even death won't take you from me." Those words still echoed in Leora's mind when the horns of the full moon ceremony thundered across the palace grounds. Servants scurried, guards braced themselves, and nobles gathered in the great courtyard, all eyes drawn to the night sky where the swollen moon rose like a blood-stained crown. Kaelen stood at the center, his form trembling as though chains pulled at his very bones. His breath came ragged, his skin glistening with sweat. The council murmured, unease flickering in their eyes. "It's starting," one whispered. Liora, pulled by some instinct she didn't understand, slipped into the courtyard. Her presence drew Kaelen's gaze, and something in his eyes was not human anymore. The transformation struck like a storm. His body convulsed, bones snapping, muscles tearing and reforming. His roar shattered the night, sending even the fiercest warriors to their knees. Claws longer than blades tore through his hands, fur as black as midnight spilled across his skin. But this was no ordinary wolf. His form towered above the others, monstrous, his silhouette more beast than man, his aura dark and ancient. Gasps rippled through the assembly. "This isn't a wolf, it's a demon, the curse has him." The beast's silver eyes blazed wild and feral, yet when they locked on Liora, everything stopped. The growl in his throat died, his claws lowered. Slowly, impossibly, the monstrous Alpha King dropped to his knees before her, bowing his head as though she were not his queen, but his master. The council erupted in panic. He kneels to her, he's bound, she's the curse-bringer. She will unmake him. Liora's chest heaved as she stepped forward despite herself, her heart pounding. She should have been afraid. But as the moonlight bathed Kaelen's monstrous frame, she felt something else. Recognition. Like her very soul knew this form, this man, this beast. "Kaelen," she whispered. The beast shuddered, his massive claws digging into the stone as though struggling to restrain himself. His voice, distorted and guttural, tore from his throat. "Don't leave me." The council began shouting, some calling for her execution, others for Kaelen's restraint. Chaos swept the courtyard. Guards circled her, torn between protecting their queen or obeying the council's cries of treason. Then suddenly a shadow darted across the wall. An arrow, black-tipped and glowing with strange runes, shot through the air. It struck the ground inches from Liora's feet, sizzling with dark magic. The rival Alpha's voice boomed from the distance, carried on the wind. "She is not your queen, she is your doom." Liora spun toward the sound, terror clawing her chest. The council's whispers became screams, and as Kaelen's monstrous form lifted its head, his glowing eyes fixed on her with an intensity that burned through the curse, not protection, not possession, but a terrifying truth. He was kneeling because she was the key. The scene ends with the beast rising to his full monstrous height, claws dripping, as the council flees in horror. He turns to Liora, voice trembling between beast and man. "You are the reason I still breathe. Hyosin are the reason I still breathe." Kaelen's monstrous voice still lingered in the silent courtyard as the council and nobles scattered like frightened birds. Only Liora remained rooted to the ground, trembling under the weight of his words. Before she could speak, Kaelen shuddered, his form breaking apart with bone-snapping agony until he collapsed back into his human body, bloodied, shaking, but alive. At dawn, whispers stormed through the kingdom. The Alpha King had bowed to his queen. Some called it a curse, others called it fate, but all demanded proof that the fragile, scarred human girl was worthy of sitting beside their king. The council convened. Their solution: a grand banquet to display her dignity, her worth, her loyalty. One chance to silence their doubts or be cast aside. That night the palace glittered with firelight and jewels. Gold chalices brimmed with wine. Music swirled through the air, and the tension was so sharp it could cut skin. Liora sat beside Kaelen, every eye drilling into her, every smile sharpened like a knife. She lifted her cup with trembling hands, but before she could drink, a cough rang out. Then another. Suddenly, one of the lords slammed his chalice down, his body seizing. Another fell back in his chair, foaming at the mouth. Screams erupted as three more collapsed, convulsing. "Poison!" a voice shrieked. The hall plunged into chaos. Nobles overturned tables, guards drew swords, and all eyes snapped to Liora, the untouched chalice still clutched in her hand. "She didn't drink. She wanted us dead. She seeks to take the throne by blood." Liora froze, horror striking her numb. "No, I didn't." But before she could defend herself, Kaelen rose with a roar, silencing the room. His eyes burned with fury, but there was something else beneath it, hesitation. He moved toward her, nostrils flaring. The world slowed as he reached for her trembling hands, clasping them gently. He lowered his head and inhaled, his wolf senses searching for truth. And then, his body stiffened. The scent hit him faint, bitter, unmistakable. Poison. It clung to her fingertips like a whisper of death. The hall gasped. Kaelen's jaw tightened, his voice deep and strained. "Why? Is it on you?" Liora's heart plummeted, her throat dry. She shook her head, stammering. "I don't know, I didn't, Kaelen. You have to believe me." But his eyes wavered. For the first time since claiming her, his certainty fractured. The bond between them trembled under the weight of the accusation. The council seized their moment. "She is the curse," one shouted. "The prophecy warned us, she brings death to wolves." Guards stepped forward, hesitation etched on their faces as they awaited Kaelen's command. The nobles screamed for her arrest. Liora's world spun, the walls closing in, betrayal pressing on all sides. And then before Kaelen could answer, a chilling laugh echoed through the banquet hall. At the far end of the chamber, a cloaked figure emerged from the shadows, holding a vial of black liquid between gloved fingers. "Looking for this?" The stranger sneered. Gasps filled the room. The figure tipped the vial in mock salute. "If you want to know who truly poisons your kingdom, you'll have to catch me first." With a flash of steel and smoke, the figure vanished into the darkness, leaving the hall in chaos and suspicion still clinging to Liora's hands. Kaelen's gaze lingered on her, torn between faith and fear, and Liora realized with a sinking dread if she didn't prove her innocence soon, even the Alpha King might not be able to save her. The banquet hall still reeked of spilled wine and blood. The cloaked stranger's mocking laugh lingered like poison in the air. But the damage was already done, every noble's eyes burned with suspicion. The guards hesitated, waiting for their king's command. Kaelen's jaw clenched, his gaze torn between the woman he had claimed and the damning scent of poison on her hands. "Take her," he growled at last. His voice was jagged, not with rage but with torment. Gasps swept the room. Liora stumbled back, her heart cracking. "Kaelen, please, you know me. I didn't do this." But the guards seized her arms, their grip iron, dragging her through the marble halls as nobles whispered curses. Chains clinked, doors slammed. The queen who was supposed to save the kingdom was thrown into the dungeons like a criminal. The air below was damp and cold, thick with mildew and despair. Rats scurried in the shadows as iron bars sealed her fate. Alone, shivering, Liora pressed her forehead to the stone wall and whispered, "Why won't you believe me?" Meanwhile, above, her stepmother moved swiftly. In the council chambers, gold glinted from her jeweled hands as she slipped coins to trembling witnesses. Servants, merchants, and guards alike bent their heads, swearing they had seen Liora with strange vials, whispering incantations in the dark. Lies flowed as easily as wine, and with every bought testimony, the noose around Liora's neck tightened. Hours passed, or was it days? Time blurred in the darkness. Liora's eyelids grew heavy until a faint sound woke her soft footsteps, though none should have come. The air shifted, a glow pierced the gloom, and there, inside her cell, stood the impossible. Her mother, or what remained of her translucent ethereal, her eyes filled with sorrow and warning. "Mother?" Liora whispered, her voice breaking. The ghostly figure stepped closer, a silver dagger glinting in her hand. The blade pulsed with otherworldly light as if alive. "You are in chains," the vision murmured. "But worse chains await you. The wolves will never see you as their queen, and the one you trust most is the one you must fear." Liora's breath caught. "You mean Kaelen?" The spirit pressed the dagger into her trembling palms. The chill of the weapon seeped into her bones, making her shudder. "Do not trust the king," her mother's voice echoed, low and grave. "When the moment comes, strike before he strikes you." The torchlight sputtered, and the vision flickered like smoke. Liora reached out, desperate, but the apparition dissolved into the cold air, leaving only the dagger in her grip. Her heart pounded. Betrayal warred with longing inside her chest. Could Kaelen truly be the enemy? Or was this another manipulation, her stepmother's scheme reaching even into the grave? Heavy footsteps thundered down the corridor. Kaelen himself appeared, cloaked in shadow, his face grim as iron. "Liora," he said, his voice low, unreadable. "We need to talk about what you've done." She hid the dagger behind her, pulse racing. For the first time, she didn't know whether to run into his arms or use the weapon now clutched in her hands. The torchlight flickered against the damp dungeon walls as Kaelen's shadow loomed before her cell. Liora's fingers clenched around the silver dagger her mother's ghost had given her, hiding it behind her back. Her heart raced. Was this the moment she was meant to strike? Kaelen's eyes, however, held no fury, only exhaustion, regret. He unlocked the iron door himself, the clang echoing like thunder. "You don't belong in chains," he murmured. "Not here. Not like this." Liora stepped back, suspicion threading her voice. "Then why did you put me here?" He flinched as though her words were sharper than any blade. "Because the court demanded it, and because I am cursed in ways you cannot yet understand." Her grip on the dagger trembled. "Cursed?" Kaelen reached for her hand but stopped short, his claws half-shifting before her eyes. "There are things about me the court doesn't know. Things they must never know. If you still wish to leave, I won't stop you. But if you choose to follow me tonight, I will show you the truth." Against every instinct, against the ghostly warning, Liora allowed him to guide her out of the palace. Cloaked in shadows, they slipped past guards and through hidden passages until the forest swallowed them whole. Dew clung to the branches, and the moon bathed the clearing in silver light. Here, Kaelen finally dropped his mask. His body trembled, shifting violently as if torn between forms. His growl echoed through the trees, more beast than man. His skin rippled, bones snapping, until a monstrous form emerged larger, darker, and more terrifying than any wolf she had ever seen. His eyes glowed not gold but crimson. Liora staggered back, dagger raised. But then, he knelt. The monstrous king bent before her, his massive frame bowing low as if in supplication. His guttural voice clawed its way through fangs and fur. "This is my truth. I am bound by a curse. Only a queen who can love me as both man and monster may free me. That is why I chose you." The world spun around her. Love him? She could barely trust him. And yet, seeing the mighty Alpha King brought to his knees before her, both terrifying and fragile, twisted her heart. Before she could respond, a sharp whistle sliced the air. Arrows rained down, embedding into the earth at her feet. Shadows moved between the trees. Dozens of hunters emerged, cloaked in the markings of a rival clan. Their leader stepped forward, his smirk cruel. "Looks like we've cornered the beast," he sneered, "and his little human queen." Kaelen's growl shook the ground, but his crimson eyes flicked toward Liora, torn between unleashing his monstrous strength and keeping her safe. The hunters tightened their circle. Bowstrings drew back, and Liora, heart hammering, realized she was caught between Kaelen's curse and the enemy's blades, forced to choose whether to fight at his side or use the dagger meant to end him. Arrows sliced through the night as Kaelen lunged forward, his monstrous form shielding Liora. His claws shredded through the first wave of hunters, but their numbers overwhelmed even him. Silver-tipped spears jabbed at his flesh, hissing as they burned against his cursed hide. Liora's dagger flashed, her strikes clumsy yet desperate, but she was dragged back by rough hands. "Kaelen!" she screamed, watching as chains of silver tightened around him, forcing the mighty Alpha King to his knees. His crimson eyes locked on hers, wild with fury and something else, fear. The rival Alpha stepped forward, tall, cruel, his presence radiating authority. His smirk widened as he yanked Liora upright by her arm. "So this is the fragile little human he risks everything for. How disappointing." Kaelen roared, straining against his chains, but the rival's warriors only drove him deeper into the dirt. "You want her?" the rival Alpha sneered. "Then let her prove herself." Before Liora could ask what he meant, she was dragged to a stone circle carved into the forest floor, its surface etched with ancient runes. At its center burned an otherworldly flame, blue, silver, alive, licking the air like a living beast. Kaelen's voice broke through the chaos. "No, don't touch her. The moonfire will kill her." The rival only chuckled. "Then let it. If she dies, she was never meant for you. If she survives, and then perhaps she was destined to belong to me." Gasps rose from the surrounding hunters. The trial by moonfire was a legend, whispered of but never seen. It was said the flames consumed all mortals, only those touched by the goddess herself could endure them. Liora's heart thundered as they shoved her toward the blaze. She could feel its heat, but it was not like normal fire. It seemed to hum, whisper, choose. Kaelen's chains rattled violently. "Liora, don't step in. Please." His voice cracked, pleading. But the rival Alpha's grip forced her forward, and the circle of warriors chanted in unison, their voices echoing into the night. Liora lifted her chin. If she stepped back, she was weak. If she stepped forward, she might burn. Either way, the Court of Wolves would never see her the same again. With trembling breath, she walked into the moonfire. The flames devoured her instantly, yet no scream left her lips. Heat surged, light blazed, and for a heartbeat she was certain death had come. But then, the fire bent around her. It curled against her skin like a caress, wrapping her in light instead of pain. Her scars glowed, her eyes shimmered silver, and the air crackled with divine energy. The chanting faltered. Warriors dropped to their knees. Even Kaelen, his monstrous form trembling, stared in disbelief. When the flames died, Liora stood unscathed at the center, her hair gleaming with moonlight. The rival Alpha's smirk vanished, replaced with awe. Slowly, he lowered himself to one knee. "She is moon-touched," he whispered. "The chosen of the goddess." Gasps spread like wildfire as more wolves bowed. But Kaelen's gaze burned not with triumph, but with terror. Because if Liora was moon-touched, then she was no longer just his queen. She was a weapon, and weapons could be claimed. The forest still trembled with the whispers of the rival clan as Liora stepped out of the dying moonfire. Her skin still shimmered faintly, her heart beat alive with a rhythm that no longer felt human. Kaelen staggered toward her, his chains snapping under his monstrous strength, yet his gaze was haunted. He reached out but hesitated because touching her now felt like touching something sacred. The rival Alpha knelt at her feet, his voice reverent. "Moon-touched, the goddess has chosen you. By ancient law, no wolf may raise a blade against you." Around him, warriors pressed their foreheads to the dirt, submitting not to Kaelen but to her. But Liora's eyes were fixed on Kaelen. "We have to go back," she whispered. "Something's wrong." Kaelen stiffened. His instincts, sharp as any beast, told him the same. Without another word, he seized her hand, and together they fled into the forest, leaving the rival clan in stunned silence. By dawn, smoke rose in the distance. The closer they came, the more Liora's stomach twisted. The palace gates, once tall and unyielding, were reduced to charred ruins. Blood stained the cobblestones, bodies of wolves and servants alike scattered in silent testimony. Kaelen's growl shook the earth. He raced ahead, tearing through the smoldering halls, but the stench of ash and death only deepened. His council, the elders who once scorned Liora, lay lifeless, their throats slit. And upon the blackened throne of the Alpha King sat a figure Liora knew too well. Her stepmother. Clad in silks the color of spilled wine, her pale hands rested delicately on a grotesque crown made of sharpened wolf bones. At her feet, loyalists knelt in silence, her lips curled into a smile when she saw them. "Well, well," she purred, "the runaway bride returns, and with quite the glow about her." Liora's blood ran cold, the amulet from the ambush, the whispers in the dark halls, the poisoned wine, all of it threads that now pointed to the woman before her. "You," Liora breathed, "you did this." Her stepmother rose gracefully, the bone crown glinting in the smoky light. "Of course I did. While you were busy playing savior in the woods, I claimed the throne. This kingdom deserves a queen of cunning, not a child playing with destiny." Her gaze slid to Kaelen, sharp as a dagger. "And you, my king, you'll kneel, or you'll burn." Kaelen's claws dug into the floor, his chest heaving with rage. Liora stepped closer, silver light flickering faintly in her eyes. Her stepmother's smile only widened. "You don't even realize it yet, do you, Liora? The prophecy wasn't about saving him." She tilted her head, voice dropping to a whisper that slithered through the ruined hall. "It was about replacing him." The throne room fell silent just before the ground beneath them shuddered, as if the palace itself had heard and stirred awake. The throne room shuddered beneath the weight of her stepmother's words, dust sifting from the ruined ceiling. Kaelen's growl reverberated through the hall, his golden eyes blazing with fury. But before he could lunge, guards loyal to the new Queen Regent poured in, steel-tipped spears glinting, encircling him and Liora. "Seize them both," her stepmother commanded, her bone crown casting jagged shadows across her face. Kaelen fought like a storm unleashed, claws rending through armor and flesh. But for every guard he struck down, 3 more surged forward. Liora tried to run to him, yet rough hands seized her arms, dragging her toward the dais. She kicked and screamed, but the circle tightened. Her stepmother descended the throne steps with the grace of a predator, lifting a gleaming blade forged of silver. "The prophecy is mine to command," she hissed, pressing the cold edge against Leora's throat. "Your blood will sanctify my reign," Kaelen roared, breaking free for a single breath, but chains weighted with wolfsbane lashed around his neck, pulling him to his knees. His eyes locked with Leora's, wild with helplessness. The blade rose, and then a whistle split the air. In the chaos, a shadow streaked across the hall, faster than any wolf's strike. A figure cloaked in black slammed into the guard, restraining Liora, sending him sprawling. The silver blade clattered across the floor. "Run!" the stranger snarled, yanking her free. His voice was low, commanding, and eerily familiar. Before she could protest, he dragged her through a side passage, the screams of battle echoing behind them. They raced through the burning ruins, twisting down forgotten corridors, until they burst into the cold night air. Liora stumbled, chest heaving, trying to make sense of what just happened. The stranger removed his hood. Dark hair, golden eyes that mirrored Kaelen's but colder, sharper, touched by exile. Who are you?" Liora whispered, trembling. He gave a crooked smile, one that held no warmth. "Eric's, Kaelen's brother." Her heart stuttered. "But Kaelen never spoke of me?" Eric's cut her off, his voice like steel drawn across stone. "Of course not. He wants his pretty bride to see him as a savior, not a monster." He stepped closer, his gaze piercing. "But I'll tell you the truth your king never dared. Kaelen is not who you think he is." Liora froze, torn between the loyalty that bound her to Kaelen and the gnawing suspicion awakened by Eric's words. Behind them, the palace flames licked higher into the sky, her stepmother's laughter ringing through the night. Eric's hand tightened on her arm. "Choose wisely," Moon touched. "Stay with Kaelen, and you'll die with him. Come with me, and you might just learn who you truly are." The howl of wolves echoed in the distance, loyalists hunting them down. And Liora, caught between 2 brothers bound by blood and betrayal, had only moments to decide. The night air bit into Leora's skin as she stood frozen, Eric's grip firm on her arm. Behind them, the flames of the ruined palace painted the sky with blood-red streaks, and the echoes of war drums still thundered faintly. But it was Eric's words, not the fire, that made her knees weaken. "Kaelen is not who you think," he said again, his eyes gleaming like molten gold. "He hides behind the mask of a king, but I know the truth, because I was there when your mother died." Leora's breath caught. "My mother? No. She was taken by illness." Eric's laughed bitterly. "Is that what he told you? Convenient, isn't it? A soft tale of death by sickness. But it was Kaelen. He unleashed the beast within him that night, and her blood stained these very lands." Her world tilted. Her mother's voice still haunted her dreams, her gentle warnings echoing in the dungeon. To hear her death tied to Kaelen felt like betrayal carved straight into her heart. "You're lying," Liora whispered, but her voice quivered. "Am I?" Eric stepped closer, his words striking like daggers. "Look into Kaelen's eyes and you'll see the silence of guilt. Ask him, if you dare." Hours later, the forest gave way to the hidden refuge of Kaelen's loyalists, where he awaited her, still shackled from the battle but alive. His face lit with relief when she entered, but the sight of him nearly shattered her. She steadied her voice, though her chest heaved with pain. "Kaelen," she whispered, "tell me the truth. Did you kill my mother?" The air thickened, his jaw tightened, his golden eyes shifting with shadows she had never seen before. He said nothing. "Say something," she cried, her voice breaking. But his silence was deafening, his stillness more damning than any confession. Leora's heart fractured. Hot tears burned her cheeks as she staggered back, her voice trembling with disbelief. All this time you let me believe she died in peace. You let me love you." She turned and fled into the night, Kaelen's hand twitching toward her, his lips parting as if to speak, but no words came. Branches tore at her dress as she stumbled deeper into the forest, her sobs muffled by the rustling leaves. Her world was unraveling, her stepmother on the throne, Kaelen bound by secrets, and Eric's venomous truths twisting through her veins. But she was not alone. In the shadows, unseen eyes tracked her every move. The air grew colder, unnaturally still. A shape moved silent, deliberate. A figure cloaked in black lingered at the edge of the trees, watching, waiting. And as Liora collapsed to her knees, the silver dagger her mother's ghost had given her slipped from her sash, gleaming under the moonlight. A pale hand reached for it from the darkness. The dagger gleamed under the moonlight, its silver edge catching the breath of the night. Before the pale hand could seize it, the air thickened with a strange chill. The forest fell silent, no crickets, no wind, no rustle of leaves. And then the glow began. From the dagger's edge rose a ghostly shimmer, swirling until it took form her mother. Not the faint fleeting shadow Liora had seen in the dungeon, but clearer, sharper, her face sculpted in sorrow and urgency. "Mother!" Leora's voice cracked as she stumbled backward, trembling. The spirit's eyes, like molten silver, bore into hers. "Liora, my child, the time has come. The curse choking this land cannot be undone by love alone. It demands blood." Her words pierced deeper than any blade. "Blood?" Liora whispered, clutching her chest. "You must choose between the brothers," the spirit intoned, her voice heavy as a tolling bell. "One must die, and only through his death will the curse be broken. Hesitate, and the darkness will consume you and him." Liora shook her head violently, tears streaming down her cheeks. "No, no, I can't, don't ask me to do this. They're both—" But before she could finish, the crunch of boots echoed through the trees. Kaelen emerged first, his golden eyes ablaze, his presence commanding the shadows to part. He looked haunted, his lips parted as if the silence of his earlier guilt still clung to him. Then came Eric's, his dark smirk curling like smoke. Yet there was something desperate in his gaze, something feral. Both men froze at the sight of the spirit, their faces shifting from defiance to dread. "Mother," Kaelen whispered, his voice raw. "You see it too?" Liora gasped. Eric snarled. "Don't listen to her. Spirits lie, especially those chained to curses." The ghost ignored him, her gaze fixed on Liora alone. "The choice is yours, my daughter. Delay no longer." Leora's knees buckled. The forest spun as Kaelen surged forward, his hand outstretched. "Liora, trust me. Don't believe his poison." Eric's grabbed her other arm, pulling her back. He already admitted his guilt with silence. End him and free yourself. Two brothers, their grips like chains, their voices like storms tearing her apart. Her heart thundered in her chest, the prophecy's weight pressing down until she could barely breathe. The silver dagger lay between them, pulsing with unnatural light, as though it could feel the choice it was forged to fulfill. Leora's scream broke the silence, torn between love and betrayal, destiny and despair. And then the ground shook. The moon above bled red, washing the forest in crimson light. Both brothers turned, their hands tightening on her, their eyes wild with fear. Her mother's spirit whispered one last chilling word before vanishing. "Choose." The dagger rose from the earth, floating between the three of them, its blade spinning, waiting for Leora's hand. The dagger hovered in the crimson air, spinning slowly as if savoring the torment etched into Leora's soul. The red moon burned above, its glow suffocating the forest, casting Kaelen, Eric's, and Liora in a circle of bloodlight. Then Kaelen roared. With a snarl that shook the trees, he shoved Eric's away, fangs flashing, claws bursting from his hands. His voice, guttural with rage, echoed, "You will not take her from me." Eric staggered back, but only for a moment. His lips twisted into a dangerous grin as his body rippled, bones snapping, fur exploding from his skin until his form became something monstrous, a wolf forged from shadow and flame. "She deserves the truth you've buried in silence, brother, and I'll carve it out of you if I must." The ground split beneath their clash. Kaelen's form shifted into his alpha beast larger than any wolf, eyes blazing gold, muscles coiled with unnatural power. The two titans collided, snarls and howls tearing through the forest like thunder. Each strike shook the earth, each bite sprayed blood into the red-lit air. Liora fell to her knees, the dagger still floating just inches from her reach. Her heart hammered as the ghostly warning replayed in her mind. One must die. But watching them, two brothers twisted by pain, rage, and fate, her chest ached. Could destiny truly demand this? The duel raged around her, trees collapsing under the force of their blows. Eric's shadow flame seared Kaelen's fur while Kaelen's claws raked deep into his brother's chest. The ground was painted in red. Then, through the carnage, Liora's breath hitched. Both brothers, though locked in brutal combat, bore the same mark etched just beneath their ribs, glowing faintly in the red light, a sigil shaped like a crescent moon entwined with chains. Her stomach lurched. The cursed seal. The prophecy's cruel truth slammed into her. Both cannot live. She staggered forward, screaming, "Stop! You'll kill each other!" But her voice was swallowed by their roars. Kaelen drove Eric's into the dirt, his claws pinning his brother's throat. "Yield!" he bellowed, golden eyes wild with fury. Eric spat blood and laughed, his fangs dripping. "I'd rather die than let you damn her as you damned our mother." The words sliced through the night. Liora froze, the dagger quivering in the air as though drawn to the revelation. Her mother. The truth still coiled in shadows, and both brothers claimed pieces of it. The moon above pulsed, and the mark on both their chests blazed brighter, linking them in a fiery chain of light. The forest trembled as if it too waited for her choice. And then Kaelen howled in agony, his body jerking. The cursed mark flared, burning through his flesh. Eric's convulsed too, their shared seal binding them in suffering. Both fell to their knees, claws clutching their chests, their roars mingling into one tortured sound. The dagger dropped into Liora's hand, searing her palm with silver fire. Her mother's voice whispered faintly on the wind. "The curse chooses through you, my daughter. One brother's blood must spill tonight." Liora raised her eyes, trembling, caught between the two writhing forms before her. The red moon darkened, shadows thickening. And then out of the darkness her stepmother stepped forward, clad in bone and blood, her eyes gleaming with triumph. "Perfect," she purred. "Let me help you decide." The night bled red as Liora's stepmother emerged from the shadows, her crown of wolf bones glinting under the cursed moon. Her smile was carved from cruelty, her voice a blade. "You were never strong enough to decide, girl. Let me end this for you." She raised her hand, and the cursed seal on Kaelen and Eric's chests flared in unison, both brothers howling as if her will pulled at their very souls. The dagger in Liora's palm burned, urging her to act. Her stepmother's laughter rang across the trembling forest. Liora's chest heaved. Her mother's last whisper clawed at her mind. One must die. But as she stared at Kaelen, broken and snarling, and at Eric's, still defiant through his pain, a surge of clarity struck her heart. This was not a choice, it was a trap, a game designed by someone else. Her eyes hardened. "No," she whispered. Instead of raising the dagger toward either brother, Liora gripped it tighter, turned the blade inward, and with a cry that shook the trees, drove the silver edge deep into her own palm. Blood hissed as it touched the dagger's runes, igniting them with white fire. The earth roared. Her stepmother staggered back, eyes widening in disbelief. "What have you done?" The seal on the brothers' chests writhed violently, breaking free of their flesh in tendrils of fire. The ground split apart, molten veins glowing beneath the soil. Trees burst into flame, yet the fire did not burn Liora, it crowned her, encircling her in a halo of light. The red moon quaked. From the fissures of the earth, a howl thundered, deeper and older than time itself. Shadows fled as a colossal figure rose from the flames, a wolf vast as mountains, its fur blazing with eternal fire, eyes burning like suns. The ancient deity of the wolves had awakened. The stepmother stumbled back, her crown of bones cracking under its gaze. Impossible, she hissed. The god's voice rumbled like an avalanche, yet it flowed through Liora's blood, speaking to her alone. At last, daughter of the flame, the blood of mortals and wolves entwined, you have called me forth. Liora's knees buckled, the dagger glowing against her wound, but she lifted her chin. I will not let fate chain me to their cruelty, she whispered. The deity's laugh shook the stars. Then you would break the prophecy? You would dare? Her stepmother screeched, summoning dark power, but the flames around Liora lashed out, keeping her at bay. The ground trembled harder, the air thick with burning light. Kaelen and Eric's, both barely conscious, stared at her through the fire, one with awe, the other with fear. The deity's eyes narrowed, its form towering over all of them. Then prove yourself, Flameborn. The world shall burn or be reborn by your choice. And as its blazing muzzle lowered toward her, she felt her mother's ghostly hand press against her shoulder, whispering once more, Daughter, the fire will consume what you love, or cleanse what you hate. Choose. The flames surged higher, swallowing the forest in a storm of light. The world burned white around her. Liora stood trembling, her wounded palm clutched around the silver dagger, the deity's flames swallowing the forest whole. The colossal wolf lowered its molten muzzle until its eyes, ancient and merciless, filled her vision. Child of fire, the deity rumbled, its voice echoing in her very bones. The lies of mortals bound you in chains of shame. They called you unworthy. They cloaked you in ugliness, so your enemies would never see what you truly are. Liora's breath caught. Her stepmother hissed from the shadows, clutching her bone crown. No, do not speak it. She is nothing. The deity's gaze seared her. Look within, daughter of flame. Cast off the veil of falsehood. The fire surged around her body and agony lanced through her veins. She screamed as the cursed veil, woven by her stepmother's deceit, ripped apart. Her skin shimmered, her hair ignited with strands of gold and ember, her eyes blazing like molten amber. The scars of ugliness melted away, revealing the radiant, fierce beauty of the moon-touched queen. The forest hushed. Even Kaelen and Eric's broken, bloodied yet alive stared in stunned silence. Liora's stepmother staggered back, shrieking, No! This cannot be! You were meant to crawl, not to rise. Her crown shattered, her form twisting as darkness poured from her. Her limbs warped, fur sprouting like diseased flame, eyes glowing with malice. With a howl that split the sky, she transformed into a monstrous witch-wolf, her body bristling with blackened thorns and bone spikes. The deity's fire flared higher, but it did not move. It watched. Testing. Rise or fall, child. Prove you are queen not by words, but by fire. The monstrous stepmother lunged. The ground cracked beneath her, claws raking for Liora's throat. But Liora no longer cowered. The flames around her spiraled into a blazing shield, her body moving as though guided by something greater. The silver dagger in her hand pulsed with holy fire, no longer a weapon of despair, but a scepter of destiny. The battle roared flame against shadow. Every strike shook the heavens. Every scream tore at the edges of fate. Yet even as Liora's power surged, the witch-wolf's darkness deepened, her form swelling with stolen souls and curses bound by centuries of deceit. The stepmother's laugh twisted through the flames. Power will consume you, girl. You cannot win. Fire burns all, even those who wield it. The deity's voice thundered in her mind, solemn and heavy. One truth remains. Fire is destruction, but also rebirth. Which will you choose, Queen of Flame? Liora raised the dagger high, her heart pounding, fire roaring in her blood. And just as she prepared to strike, the witch-wolf's shadowed maw opened wide, and from within its darkness came a voice Liora had never expected her mother's scream. The battlefield froze. Fire and shadow clashed in the air, yet all Liora could hear was that scream, her mother's voice, raw and desperate, trapped inside the monstrous witch-wolf. Her hand trembled around the silver dagger, the flames coiling around her dimming with her hesitation. Mother, Liora whispered, her voice breaking. The witch-wolf snarled, shadows writhing. But the scream came again, clearer this time, clawing through the beast's throat. Liora, free me! Tears streaked her fire-lit face. She understood now. Her stepmother had not only killed her mother, she had bound her very soul within the cursed body she wore. To slay the monster was to free her mother, but it could also destroy her forever. The deity's thunderous voice rolled through the flames. The queen's test is not power, but choice. Fire destroys, fire redeems. Decide, daughter of flame. With a cry that shook the heavens, Liora surged forward. The witch-wolf's claws tore across her shoulder, blood spilling, but she did not falter. She drove the blazing dagger deep into the monster's chest. A deafening scream ripped the night as fire and shadow exploded outward. For one breathless moment she saw her mother's face, luminous and free, smiling through the flames. Then the darkness collapsed into ash, and the witch-wolf was no more. Silence fell. The battlefield was hers, the prophecy fulfilled. But fate was not finished with her. Kaelen staggered forward, bloodied but alive, his amber eyes pleading. Choose me, Liora. My curse ends only with you. I have waited a lifetime for this. Eric stepped from the shadows, fierce and desperate. No! He cannot be trusted. You've seen what he hides. Choose me, and I will never betray you. Both bore the same cursed mark upon their skin. Both were bound to her destiny, and both now begged for her heart. The deity's voice returned, cold and final. One must be chosen, the curse ends tonight. Her heart warred within her chest. The man who had been her salvation, or the one who had been her shield. Both reached for her hands. Both believed their survival was the key. Through tears, Liora lifted the dagger once more, the flames whispering around her. She made her choice. The curse shattered, the marks seared from their skin in a burst of white fire. The chosen one fell to his knees, gasping with life renewed, only to look upon her with empty, unknowing eyes. He remembered nothing. Not her face, not her love, not their battles. Nothing. The other collapsed lifeless to the ground, his blood soaking into the earth. Liora stood frozen, the crown heavy in her hand, her heart breaking under the weight of destiny. Around her, the ruins of battle smoldered, and the deity's voice faded like dying thunder. At last she turned from the fallen, her voice trembling into the wind. This is not the end. The crown glimmered in her grasp as she walked into the night, neither queen nor bride, but something far greater and far lonelier.